A 911 call is about to destroy a perfect wedding night. There's a situation on Elmwood Drive, Catherine Mitchell whispers into her phone. A large gathering of these people in the Washington backyard. The dispatcher's voice crackles back. Ma'am, what's the nature of your emergency? 300 feet away, Jamal Washington kisses his bride as their families celebrate around them. String lights twinkle above laughing children. Gospel music drifts over manicured lawns. This should be the happiest moment of their lives. But Kathy's finger hovers over her phone screen, ready to send a text that will change everything. The noise levels are completely inappropriate for this neighborhood, she continues, and there are too many cars, way too many people who don't belong here. The dispatcher pauses. Ma'am, what exactly is the emergency? 2 police cruisers turn onto Elmwood Drive, sirens silent but lights cutting through the darkness. Jamal Washington has no idea his wedding is about to make national headlines. 6 hours earlier, Jamal Washington checks his phone while adjusting his bow tie. 3 missed calls from the police chief, 4 emails about Monday's budget meeting, 1 text about the new community policing initiative. He slides the phone into his tuxedo pocket. Today isn't about work. Today is about Sarah. At the mailbox, Kathy Mitchell appears like clockwork. She's lived across the street for 15 years, but they've never had a real conversation. Big day, I see, she says, eyeing the catering trucks. Must be expensive, all this celebrating. Jamal nods politely. Just family and friends. Her eyes narrow. I hope you have the proper permits. The HOA has strict rules about gatherings. Everything's taken care of. Kathy's lips press into a thin line. I'm sure it is. Some people think rules don't apply to them. She walks away, leaving Jamal puzzled. He's always been the quiet neighbor, keeps his lawn perfect, waves when they pass, never had a single complaint. His phone buzzes. Chief Williams, Mayor, need 5 minutes before your big day. Important development on the Bradley situation. Jamal types back quickly. After honeymoon, whatever it is can wait. The response comes immediately. Understood. Enjoy your celebration, sir. You've earned it. Back at the wedding, sunset paints the sky purple and gold. Sarah's dress catches the last rays of sunlight. Her father raises a toast to new beginnings and old traditions. But across the street, Kathy Mitchell watches from her window. She counts cars, takes photos of license plates, scrolls through her phone contacts until she finds the number she's looking for. The first officer steps out, adjusting his radio. Eleanor Davis joins Kathy at the window. Finally, she whispers, someone's going to put a stop to this circus. The wedding photographer captures Sarah's laugh as Jamal spins her around the makeshift dance floor. Neither of them notices the police cars approaching. In his pocket, Jamal's phone buzzes with a text from Chief Williams. Sir, we have a situation developing on Elmwood Drive. En route to assess. The knock interrupts the father-daughter dance. Jamal excuses himself from the reception, smoothing his tuxedo as he walks to the front door. Through the peephole, he sees 2 uniformed officers on his porch. He opens the door with a welcoming smile. Good evening, officers. How can I help you? Officer Tommy Bradley, 6 months out of the academy, consults his notepad. Sir, we received a noise complaint about this address. Are you the homeowner? I am. Jamal Washington. He extends his hand, which Bradley ignores. Is there a problem with our celebration? We need to verify you have proper permits for this gathering, Bradley says, his tone shifting to official authority. How many people are on the property? About 40 family members and friends. We're celebrating my wedding. Behind them, wedding guests begin to notice the commotion. Conversations quiet. Children stop running between tables. Sarah appears at Jamal's shoulder, her wedding dress rustling against the doorframe. Officer Patterson, Bradley's partner, steps forward. Sir, we'll need to see identification and any permits you might have. Jamal nods calmly. Of course. One moment. He retrieves his wallet and the wedding permit from the hall table. The document bears the official city seal and a clear signature at the bottom. Bradley examines the permit under his flashlight. This signature, it looks official. It should. It was issued by City Hall last week. Across the street, Kathy Mitchell approaches with Eleanor Davis in tow. Their faces show satisfaction mixed with nervous energy. "Officers," Kathy calls out. "I'm the one who called. I've been watching this house for months, and tonight's activity is completely inappropriate for our neighborhood." Eleanor nods vigorously. "The music, the cars, the volume of people. This isn't what we moved here for." Bradley looks between the permit and the neighbors. "Ma'am, you said there was a noise violation." "Look around," Kathy gestures dramatically. "Cars parked everywhere, people in our yards. This is a quiet family neighborhood." Jamal's jaw tightens slightly. "We've been respectful of noise levels. The music stops at 10 p.m., well within city ordinances." "Sir," Bradley interrupts, "I need to verify this permit's authenticity. The signature seems unusual." "Unusual how?" Bradley doesn't answer directly. Instead, he speaks into his radio. "Dispatch, need a supervisor to verify permit documentation at 847 Elmwood Drive." Sarah touches Jamal's arm. Her eyes show the first hint of worry. Around them, elderly relatives whisper in confusion. Children press closer to their parents. "Officers," Jamal says carefully, "what exactly are we being accused of?" Patterson checks his notepad. "No accusations, sir. Just standard verification procedures." But Kathy steps closer, emboldened by police presence. "I've lived here 15 years. These people don't belong in this neighborhood. The property values, the atmosphere we've worked to maintain." "These people?" Sarah's voice carries a sharp edge. Eleanor attempts to soften Kathy's words. "What she means is, we're used to a certain standard. Quiet evenings, modest gatherings." The wedding photographer lowers his camera. Guests begin forming a protective semicircle behind Jamal and Sarah. Uncle James, a Vietnam veteran, steps forward with his chest out. "Son," he addresses Bradley, "what law are we breaking by celebrating family?" Bradley's radio crackles. "Unit 23, Sergeant Johnson en route for backup and verification." Backup. Jamal's composure shows its first crack. "Officer, why do you need backup for a permit check?" "Standard procedure for large gatherings, sir." But Sarah knows better. She's lived in this neighborhood for 2 years, since she and Jamal got engaged. She's seen the looks, the way conversations stop when she walks by, the way Kathy pretends not to see her wave. "This isn't about permits," she says quietly. Kathy's face flushes. "Don't you dare suggest..." "Suggest what?" Jamal's voice remains level, but something dangerous flickers in his eyes. Bradley senses the escalating tension. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside while we sort this out." "Step outside of my own home?" "For everyone's safety, sir." The words hang in the evening air like smoke. 40 wedding guests watch their celebration crumble. Children clutch their grandparents' hands. The carefully planned reception, months of preparation, family flying in from 3 states, grinds to a halt. Jamal looks at his permit one more time. The signature at the bottom is bold and clear. He signed it himself in his office last Tuesday, between budget meetings and policy reviews. Bradley squints at the permit again. This signature looks official. In the distance, another siren grows louder. Kathy steps closer to the officers. "I've been watching this house for months." Behind them, Jamal's phone buzzes insistently in his pocket. The caller ID shows Chief Williams calling. He wants to answer. One conversation would end this nightmare. But Bradley's hand hovers near his radio, ready to escalate further if Jamal makes any sudden movements. Sarah's wedding dress brushes against the concrete as she moves closer to her husband. Her voice drops to a whisper only he can hear. "Baby, just tell them." Jamal shakes his head almost imperceptibly. He spent 8 months trying to be a mayor who leads by example, who follows the same rules as everyone else, who doesn't use his position for personal advantage, but watching his family's dignity stripped away on his wedding night tests every principle he holds. The approaching siren grows louder, cutting through the suburban silence like a blade. Bradley makes his decision. "Sir, I need you to step outside while we verify this permit downtown." Downtown? Jamal's voice remains controlled, but his hands clench slightly. "For a wedding permit?" "Procedure, sir." The word feels like a slap. Jamal has heard it before, in different contexts, different uniforms. Always the same tone, always the same implication. He steps onto his front porch. The concrete feels cold through his dress shoes. More neighbors emerge from their houses now. The Hendersons from 2 doors down, the Martinez family from the corner. Phones appear recording the scene. Social media posts begin spreading through the Maplewood Heights Facebook group. Eleanor Davis wraps her cardigan tighter. "I just think we need to maintain certain standards." Patterson begins approaching wedding guests. "Folks, I need to ask, do all of you reside at this address?" Uncle James, 83 years old and still imposing, stares Patterson down. "Son, I fought in Vietnam. You want to question my right to attend my nephew's wedding?" "Sir, just routine questions." But nothing feels routine anymore. Children hide behind their parents' legs. Grandmother Washington, 91 and dressed in her finest purple dress, sits heavily in a folding chair. Her hands shake, not from age, but from memory. "Baby," she whispers to her daughter, "this feels like Mississippi, 1962. Sarah's maid of honor quickly ushers the elderly relatives toward the backyard, away from the confrontation. But the damage spreads like spilled wine. Laughter dies. Music stops. The photographer packs his equipment, unsure whether to document history or protect privacy. Bradley speaks into his radio again. "Dispatch, requesting downtown verification of permit signature. Also need guidance on large gathering protocols." Jamal pulls out his phone. "Officer, I'd like to call City Hall to verify." "Sir, put the phone away. I have the right to—" "Sir." Bradley's hand moves to his belt. "Put the phone away and keep your hands visible." The gesture silences the entire yard. 40 people hold their breath. Sarah's bouquet trembles in her hands. White roses, chosen to match her grandmother's wedding 60 years ago. She worked 3 jobs to pay for this celebration. They saved for 2 years to buy this house, to build this life, to prove they belonged. Now her wedding dress is collecting dust from the concrete. Her carefully pinned hair wilts in the humidity. Everything beautiful about this night crumbles under the weight of suspicion. "Mama, why are the police being mean to Uncle Jamal?" The child's voice cuts through the tension like glass. Little Marcus, age 7, in his tiny suit and bow tie, stares up at the officers with wide, confused eyes. Eleanor Davis looks away. Even she can't maintain eye contact with a child asking why his family celebration is being treated like a crime scene. Kathy, however, doubles down. "Officers, I've researched property records. These people bought this house 8 months ago. 8 months. They have no history in this community." "These people?" Sarah steps forward, her voice sharp as steel. "Say what you mean, Kathy." "I mean people who don't understand our community values." "What values? The value of calling police on a wedding?" Bradley raises his hand. "Ladies, let's keep this civil." But civility died the moment handcuffs became part of the conversation, the moment a marriage celebration became a police matter, the moment neighbors became enforcers. In the distance, another police siren grows louder. Bradley reaches for his handcuffs. "Sir, I need you to turn around." The metal clicks against his wrist. Cold. Final. Jamal Washington on his wedding night in his own driveway becomes a suspect. Sarah gasps. Uncle James takes a step forward before other family members restrain him. Phones capture every moment, uploading to social media feeds across the city. The child's voice breaks through again, smaller now, scared. "Mama, why are they being mean to Uncle Jamal?" No one answers. No one knows how to explain this to innocence. Patterson secures the scene, asking guests to remain in the backyard. The reception becomes a holding area. Celebration becomes investigation. In the distance, another police siren grows louder, but this time it sounds different, more urgent, more official. Sergeant Michael Johnson arrives with 15 years of experience and instincts honed by thousands of calls. His patrol car pulls up slowly, deliberately. He steps out, surveys the scene, and immediately knows something is wrong. Too many officers for a noise complaint, too much tension for a permit issue, too many phones recording for a routine call. He approaches Bradley first, keeping his voice low. "Officer, what's the situation?" "Noise complaint, Sarge. Unlawful gathering. Suspect's permit appears fraudulent." Johnson glances at the handcuffed man in the tuxedo, then at the wedding decorations, then at the 40 family members clustered in the backyard. His eyebrows furrow. "Fraudulent how?" Bradley hands over the permit. Signature looks too official, too perfect, and the suspect claims he got it directly from City Hall, which seems unlikely for a residential wedding. Johnson examines the document under his flashlight. The paper stock is correct. The city seal is genuine. The permit number falls within the current range. But the signature... The signature makes him pause. "Officer Bradley, did you run the permit number through the city database?" "Didn't think it was necessary for a noise complaint, Sarge." Johnson's jaw tightens. First rule of police work, verify everything. Second rule, when something seems off, dig deeper. He approaches Patterson, who's questioning wedding guests. "What are you finding?" "Mixed residency, Sarge. Most guests are from out of town. Family members, they claim." "They claim?" Johnson's tone sharpens. "Did you ask for identification to verify relationships?" Patterson shifts uncomfortably. "Well, no, but..." "But what? You're questioning American citizens at a private residence without probable cause?" The yard goes quiet. Even Kathy Mitchell stops her commentary to listen. Johnson approaches Jamal, his demeanor shifting from interrogation to investigation. "Sir, I apologize for the confusion. May I see your identification again?" Jamal, still handcuffed, nods toward his wallet on the porch table. Johnson retrieves it, examining the driver's license carefully. Jamal Washington, 847 Elmwood Drive. Valid through 2026. But something else catches Johnson's attention. A small plastic card tucked behind the license. City Employee Parking Pass, Level 5 Clearance. Level 5 clearance is reserved for department heads and elected officials. Johnson's stomach drops. He pulls Patterson aside, speaking in urgent whispers. "Did you check his employment status?" "Why would I? It's a noise complaint." "Because the man you're detaining has Level 5 city clearance. That's mayor, city council, police chief level." Patterson's face goes pale. "Sarge, you don't think..." Johnson is already walking back to Jamal, his radio in hand. "Dispatch, I need to verify city official status for Jamal Washington, Washington. The radio crackles. Static. Then, "Sergeant Johnson, stand by for verification." Kathy Mitchell senses the shift in energy. "Officer, what's happening? Why aren't you arresting him?" Eleanor Davis grabs Kathy's arm. "Something's wrong! Look at the sergeant's face!" Johnson studies the permit signature again. Bold, confident, familiar, very familiar. He's seen this signature on budget approvals, on policy memos, on the police department's new community outreach initiative, on his own promotion paperwork 3 months ago. The radio crackles again. Sergeant Johnson, we show Jamal Washington as... The transmission cuts to static. Johnson keys his radio. Dispatch, repeat that information. Stand by, Sergeant, confirming status level with administration. Bradley approaches, sensing trouble. Sarge, what's going on? Johnson doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he walks closer to Jamal, lowering his voice. Sir, what is your occupation? Public service. What kind of public service? Jamal meets his eyes directly. I work for the city. In what capacity? I serve the community. Johnson appreciates the careful answers. This man understands procedure, understands rights, understands the weight of official positions. He's not grandstanding or threatening. He's protecting his office while protecting his family. That restraint, that dignity under pressure, tells Johnson everything he needs to know. His radio crackles with finality. Sergeant Johnson, Jamal Washington is confirmed as... Bradley's face goes pale. Sarge, what's wrong? Johnson looks at the handcuffed man in the tuxedo, at the wedding reception turned police scene, at the neighbors who called in a suspicious gathering on their own mayor, at the 40 family members watching their celebration become a civil rights incident, at the children asking why Uncle Jamal is being treated like a criminal, at the elderly grandmother remembering Mississippi, 1962. Officers, Johnson says quietly, we have a situation. Kathy Mitchell steps forward, demanding answers. What kind of situation? Why aren't you handling this? Johnson ignores her, focusing on his radio. Dispatch, confirm. Are we at the residence of Mayor Jamal Washington? The silence stretches like wire about to snap. Affirmative, Sergeant. You are at Mayor Washington's private residence. Bradley drops his notepad. Patterson sits down heavily on the porch steps. Eleanor Davis covers her mouth with both hands, and Kathy Mitchell, for the first time in 15 years, has absolutely nothing to say. Johnson approaches Jamal with new purpose. Sir, I apologize for any confusion. We're going to sort this out immediately. But the damage is done. The mayor of their city stands handcuffed in his own driveway on his wedding night. 40 witnesses, dozens of photos, social media posts spreading across the internet like wildfire. In the distance, more sirens approach. But these sound different, more authoritative, more urgent. Johnson recognizes the engine pattern. Chief Williams drives fast when he's angry. Very fast. Kathy grabs Mrs. Davis's arm. Why is he asking all these questions? 3 more patrol cars turn onto Elmwood Drive, followed by an unmarked sedan that can only mean one thing. The chief has arrived. Johnson's radio erupts with a voice that makes every officer straighten their spine. Sergeant Johnson, this is Chief Williams. Status report, now. Johnson steps away from the crowd, his voice dropping to professional calm. Chief, we have a situation that requires immediate command presence. I'm 30 seconds out. Secure the scene and prepare for full briefing. The radio message makes Johnson freeze mid-step. Bradley approaches nervously. Sarge, what's happening? Why is the chief coming personally? Johnson doesn't answer. Instead, he keys his radio for a private channel. Dispatch, confirm authorization level for current address. Level 5 clearance, Sergeant, highest city authority. Patterson overhears and his face drains of color. Highest authority? What does that mean? 3 more patrol cars turn onto Elmwood Drive, their silent approach more ominous than sirens. Neighbors emerge from houses up and down the street. The Maplewood Heights Facebook group explodes with speculation and shaky phone videos. Johnson moves with sudden purpose, approaching the handcuffed mayor. Sir, with your permission, I'm going to remove these restraints while we await clarification. Jamal nods, his dignity intact despite everything. Thank you, Sergeant. The handcuffs click open. Jamal rubs his wrists, the metal leaving red marks against his dark skin. Sarah rushes to his side, tears streaming down her face. Officers, Johnson announces to his team, I need everyone to step back and maintain professional distance until the chief arrives. Bradley's confusion grows. Sarge, I don't understand. If he's just a resident... Officer Bradley, follow orders. The wedding guests sense the shift in power dynamics. Uncle James steps forward, his military bearing commanding respect. Sergeant, what's changed? Johnson looks at the elderly veteran, recognizing someone who understands authority and chain of command. Sir, we're correcting procedural errors. Kathy Mitchell pushes toward the officers, her voice rising with panic. This is just a noise complaint. Why are more police coming? Eleanor Davis tugs at her sleeve. Kathy, something's wrong. We should go inside. No! I called this in. I have rights as a taxpayer. 3 more patrol cars arrive, officers emerging with calm efficiency. They spread across the scene with military precision, not as responders to a disturbance, but as protection detail. Johnson recognizes the formation. Executive Security Protocol. His radio crackles one final time. All units, Chief Williams on scene in 10 seconds. The unmarked sedan turns onto Elmwood Drive at exactly the speed limit. No sirens, no lights. Just the quiet authority of someone who doesn't need dramatics to command attention. Johnson straightens his uniform and approaches his team. Officers, prepare for command briefing. Briefing about what? Bradley's voice cracks slightly. Johnson looks at the mayor, still in his wedding tuxedo, surrounded by his family on what should have been the happiest night of his life. Officer Bradley, you're about to learn why we verify everything before we act. The chief's car door slams shut with finality. Kathy's voice shakes as she watches more officers surround the scene. This is just a noise complaint. But everyone knows it stopped being about noise the moment handcuffs appeared at a wedding. Chief Williams emerges from his sedan like a force of nature contained in a pressed uniform. 25 years of law enforcement have taught him to read scenes instantly. What he sees makes his jaw clench. Wedding decorations, family gathering, children in formal clothes, elderly relatives sitting in folding chairs, and his officers treating it like a crime scene. Sergeant Johnson, report. Johnson approaches with military precision. Chief, we responded to a noise complaint. Officer Bradley detained the homeowner for permit verification. Williams scans the scene, his eyes stopping on Jamal. Recognition flickers across his face, followed immediately by something between anger and embarrassment. The homeowner? Yes, sir. Jamal Washington. Williams nods slowly. I see. And where is Officer Bradley? Bradley steps forward, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. Sir, I followed standard procedure for unauthorized gatherings. Unauthorized. Williams examines the permit Johnson hands him. Officer, did you verify this permit before taking action? The signature seemed suspicious, sir. Williams studies the signature. He's seen it dozens of times. On budget approvals, on policy directives, on the memo authorizing increased community policing initiatives that Bradley himself benefits from. Suspicious how? Too official, sir. Too perfect. Williams looks at Bradley for a long moment. Officer, do you know who signs permits of this type? City Hall, sir? More specifically. Bradley's confusion is genuine. I'm not sure, sir. Williams turns to the wedding guests, his voice shifting to gentle authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for any disruption to your celebration. Please continue with your evening. The family exchanges uncertain glances. Uncle James steps forward. Officer, are we free to resume our reception? Sir, you were always free. This is a private residence hosting a lawful gathering. William's voice carries enough weight to make Bradley shrink visibly. Sarah looks at her husband, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in an hour. We can continue? Williams nods to Johnson, who begins directing officers away from the immediate area. The formation shifts from confrontation to protection. Grandmother Washington rises slowly from her chair, 91 years of dignity intact. Young man, she addresses Williams, we appreciate your courtesy. Ma'am, you deserve nothing less. The wedding photographer tentatively unpacks his camera. The DJ tests his microphone. Children emerge from behind their parents, cautiously optimistic. Jamal pulls Sarah close, whispering in her ear. She manages her first real smile since the police arrived. The maid of honor begins reorganizing the reception tables. For the first time in an hour, laughter returns to the backyard. Johnson approaches the neighbors, his notebook ready. Ma'am, I need to clarify your complaint. What specific noise violations did you observe? Kathy shifts uncomfortably. Well, it was loud. Can you be more specific? Shouting, amplified music beyond ordinance limits? Eleanor Davis steps in. There was music and talking and... She can't finish the sentence. There was no actual noise violation, no ordinance broken, no law challenged. Johnson continues his methodical questioning. Mrs. Mitchell, you mentioned concerns about parking violations? The cars. There were so many cars. Were any parked illegally? Blocking driveways? Violating posted restrictions? Kathy looks up and down the street. Every car sits properly within legal parking spaces. No fire hydrants blocked. No driveways obstructed. Well, it just seemed like too many. Too many legal cars in legal parking spaces? Her voice gets smaller. I suppose they're legal. Williams observes the questioning while staying close to Jamal. Sir, is there anything we can do to help restore your celebration? Jamal straightens his bow tie, considering. Chief, I just want my family to enjoy this evening. Of course. Sergeant Johnson will complete his report, and we'll clear the scene. The music starts again, softer but defiant. Wedding guests cautiously return to their tables. Children resume their games between the chairs. Sarah raises her bouquet toward the string lights. Everyone, please join us for the cake cutting. Applause ripples through the crowd. Not quite the joy of earlier, but something resilient, something that refuses to be broken. For the first time in an hour, Jamal smiles. The wedding music starts again, softer but defiant. Johnson closes his notepad. Sir, Chief Williams just pulled up. But Williams is already here, and his presence has shifted everything. The relief in Jamal's eyes is unmistakable. His wedding might continue after all. The reception rebuilds itself like a flower opening after rain. Tables reorganize. Conversations resume in careful whispers. The wedding cake, untouched through the chaos, waits under its protective glass dome. Jamal takes Sarah's hand, leading her away from the officers toward their makeshift dance floor. I'm sorry, he whispers. This isn't how I imagined our night. She smooths his tuxedo lapel, her touch gentle but firm. We're still married. That's what matters. The photographer captures the moment. Resilience in formal wear, love persisting through humiliation. Later, this image will become iconic, but right now it's simply a husband and wife reclaiming their joy. Children venture back onto the lawn, their laughter tentative but growing stronger. Grandmother Washington accepts help returning to her seat of honor, her purple dress catching the string lights like royalty. Uncle James raises his voice above the restored music. Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to the happy couple. May your love overcome every obstacle. Glasses lift throughout the crowd. Crystal catches light and throws rainbows across smiling faces. The toast carries weight beyond typical wedding wishes. It's a declaration of survival. Johnson maintains discreet distance, but his protective presence reassures the family. Other officers follow his lead, creating an invisible perimeter that says, this celebration is sacred. Even some neighbors watch from their windows with something approaching shame. The Martinez family steps onto their porch, offering supportive waves. The Henderson children peek through curtains, curious about the music returning. Jamal raises his champagne glass, his voice carrying across the yard. To a community that supports each other, even when we don't understand each other. The words hold multiple meanings: forgiveness mixed with challenge, grace alongside expectation. The guests applaud, their energy building towards something resembling the original celebration. Not the same. Innocence lost can't be fully recovered, but something stronger, something tested and proven. Chief Williams walks up the driveway with 3 more officers, his stride purposeful but unhurried. Sarah notices first, her hand tightening on Jamal's arm. "More police?" But Williams' approach feels different. Official, yes, but not threatening. More like a visiting dignitary than a responding officer. Kathy peeks through her curtains. "Why is the police chief here?" The question ripples through the neighborhood like wildfire. Chief Williams doesn't make house calls for noise complaints. Something bigger is happening. Chief Williams approaches with the bearing of someone carrying explosive news. His 3 accompanying officers spread across the scene with ceremonial precision, not as enforcers, but as honor guard. He stops directly in front of Jamal, removes his hat, and delivers words that shatter everything. "Mr. Mayor, I sincerely apologize for this inexcusable disruption to your wedding celebration." The words hit the neighborhood like a thunderbolt. "Mr. Mayor." Silence spreads like spilled ink. Every conversation stops. Every phone stops recording. Every breath holds suspended in disbelief. Kathy Mitchell's face drains of all color. Her legs wobble, forcing her to grip her porch railing for support. Eleanor Davis covers her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with horror at the magnitude of their mistake. Bradley drops his radio. The plastic cracks against concrete, the sound unnaturally loud in the absolute quiet. Williams continues, his voice carrying across the street for every neighbor to hear. "Sir, I've reviewed the incident report. You signed this wedding permit yourself last Tuesday during our budget meeting." He holds up the document, pointing to the signature that Bradley called too official. "This is your signature because you are the mayor of our city. You signed it in your official capacity, authorizing your own wedding reception, which is completely within your authority and legal right." Patterson sits down heavily on the porch steps, his head in his hands. Johnson steps forward, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Chief, Officer Bradley detained Mayor Washington without verification, despite having access to city databases that would have confirmed his identity within 30 seconds. Williams nods grimly. "I'm aware, Sergeant. Officer Bradley, step forward." Bradley approaches like a man walking to execution. His 6 months of academy training never covered how to respond when you handcuff your ultimate superior. "Officer, do you understand what happened here tonight?" Bradley's voice comes out as a whisper. "Sir, I detained the mayor." "You detained the mayor of our city, on his wedding night, at his private residence, based on a noise complaint that violated no ordinances." Williams pauses for effect. "The same mayor who approved your hiring, who signed your salary authorization, who allocated funding for your training." The weight of realization crushes Bradley visibly. His career, his future, his reputation, all hanging by threads. Williams turns to address the wedding guests, his voice carrying formal authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to personally assure you that this incident does not represent the values or training of our police department." Uncle James steps forward, his military bearing commanding respect. "Chief, what happens now?" "Now, we make this right." Williams signals to his officers, who produce an evidence kit. "We're going to document everything that occurred here tonight." Evidence Layer 1 unfolds systematically. Williams retrieves the wedding permit, placing it under professional lighting. Mayor Washington's signature appears on page 1, authorizing this celebration. The same signature appears on police budget approvals, policy directives, and Officer Bradley's own employment authorization. A comparison chart materializes, showing multiple examples of the mayor's official signature. The match is undeniable. Evidence Layer 2 emerges from technology. Johnson approaches with his body camera. Chief, we have complete audio recording of the neighbor complaints and officer responses. Williams nods to the crowd. With everyone's permission, I'll play relevant excerpts. Kathy's voice crackles through the speaker. There's a large gathering of these people in the Washington backyard. Pause. The noise levels are completely inappropriate for this neighborhood. Too many cars. Way too many people who don't belong here. Another pause. These people don't belong in this neighborhood. The property values, the atmosphere we've worked to maintain. Each recorded word falls like a hammer blow. The racial undertones, crystal clear on playback, strip away any pretense of legitimate complaints. Eleanor Davis begins crying softly. Even she can hear the ugliness in their recorded voices. Evidence Layer 3 arrives through modern technology. Williams produces his phone, showing Mayor Washington's official social media accounts. The mayor documented his entire wedding preparation and celebration on his verified city accounts. Photos scroll past. Jamal in his tuxedo this morning, posting about celebrating love and community. Wedding setup photos tagged with City Hall location services. Real-time updates throughout the reception. These posts, time-stamped throughout the evening, show Mayor Washington celebrating his wedding while simultaneously being detained by our officers for celebrating his wedding. The irony cuts like broken glass. Williams addresses Kathy directly, his voice carrying the weight of consequences. Mrs. Mitchell, you called police on your mayor, the man who oversees this entire police department, the elected official who represents your interests in city government. Kathy can barely speak. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never bothered to learn who your neighbor was. You saw a black man celebrating with his family and assumed criminality. The words hang in the air like smoke from a fire. Patterson finally speaks, his voice broken. Chief, what happens to us? Williams considers the question carefully. Officer Patterson, you followed your partner's lead but showed appropriate restraint. You'll complete additional community policing training. Relief floods Patterson's face. Officer Bradley, you'll face a disciplinary board review. Your actions tonight violated multiple protocols and created a public relations disaster for our department. Bradley nods numbly, understanding his career may be over. Williams turns back to the mayor. Sir, how would you like us to proceed? Jamal looks at his wife, at his family, at the neighbors watching from windows, at the officers who humiliated him, at the community he serves. His response will define not just this moment, but his entire administration's approach to justice and reconciliation. The mayor looks directly at the body camera, ensuring his words are recorded for history. Let the record show what really happened here tonight. His phone buzzes with notifications, local news stations calling, social media exploding, national outlets picking up the story. Kathy's phone lights up with incoming calls, Channel 7 News requesting interviews. The story is going viral exactly as predicted, but not the way she intended. The mayor continues, his voice steady despite everything. Let the record show that when some citizens saw their neighbors celebrating, they called for police intervention rather than community welcome. Williams nods solemnly. The record will reflect exactly that, sir. Around them, the neighborhood holds its collective breath, waiting to see how power responds to prejudice when the tables finally turn. Mayor Washington steps forward, his wedding tuxedo somehow more dignified now than when the evening began. The string lights cast gentle shadows across his face as he addresses the gathered crowd, family, officers, neighbors, and the growing audience of onlookers drawn by social media alerts. Chief Williams, thank you for your professionalism in correcting this situation. Williams nods respectfully. Sir, on behalf of the entire department, I formally apologize for the treatment you and your family received tonight. The apology carries weight beyond protocol. This is institutional accountability, recorded and witnessed. Jamal turns to Officer Bradley, whose career hangs in the balance. Officer, you made serious errors in judgment tonight, but everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes. Bradley's relief is palpable. Sir, thank you. I'll complete whatever training. You'll complete comprehensive bias training and community engagement coursework. Your probationary period extends another 6 months. Use that time to understand the community you've sworn to serve. The measured response demonstrates leadership over vengeance, justice tempered with mercy. Sergeant Johnson steps forward. Mayor, if I may, tonight's response will become a training case study for our entire department. Good. Let other officers learn from this situation. Williams addresses the wedding guests formally. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept our department's commitment to ensuring this never happens to any family in our city. Uncle James, speaking for the family, nods solemnly. We appreciate that commitment, Chief. But the real test comes when Jamal turns toward his neighbors. Kathy Mitchell stands frozen on her porch, her phone buzzing incessantly with media requests. Her call to police has indeed made national news, just not as the heroic intervention she imagined. Eleanor Davis approaches slowly, her face streaked with tears. Mayor Washington, I'm so ashamed. Her voice breaks on the words. Real remorse, not just fear of consequences. Jamal considers her carefully. Mrs. Davis, acknowledgement is the first step toward change. What can we do? How can we make this right? The question opens space for healing rather than punishment. Attend the next city council meeting. Learn about the community initiatives we're building. Understand what leadership actually looks like. Mrs. Davis nods eagerly. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Kathy remains silent, isolated on her porch as neighbors begin distancing themselves from her actions. The HOA presidency she wielded like a weapon now feels like a liability. Sarah, who has remained quietly strong throughout the ordeal, finally speaks. Everyone, we're still married. This is still our wedding night. Applause erupts from the crowd, family, supportive neighbors, even some of the officers. The celebration refuses to be entirely extinguished. The wedding photographer who documented everything approaches respectfully. Sir, ma'am, these images will tell an important story. Jamal nods. Truth needs witnesses. Williams makes a final announcement. Based on tonight's events, I'm implementing immediate reforms. All officers will receive updated training on community engagement, bias recognition, and proper verification procedures. The policy change emerges directly from personal experience, leadership responding to injustice with systemic improvement. Johnson adds, we're also establishing a community liaison program to prevent future misunderstandings. Bradley, still standing awkwardly nearby, speaks quietly. Sir, I want to be part of that program. I want to learn. His sincerity seems genuine. Whether it stems from remorse or career preservation matters less than the commitment to change. The crowd begins to disperse gradually. Officers pack their equipment, neighbors retreat to their homes, and wedding guests prepare to continue their celebration. But 3 elements remain that will echo far beyond this evening. First, the media coverage has begun. Local news vans arrive as national outlets pick up the story. Mayor detained at own wedding trends across social media platforms. The incident becomes a catalyst for broader conversations about bias, authority, and community. Second, the policy changes take root immediately. Williams announces the reforms will be implemented citywide within 30 days. Officer Bradley's experience becomes training material. Community engagement protocols get strengthened. The department's response demonstrates institutional learning rather than defensive denial. Third, and most importantly, the neighborhood itself begins changing. The Martinez family approaches with homemade cookies, apologizing for not intervening earlier. The Henderson children draw welcome cards for the newlyweds. Even some of Kathy's former allies distance themselves from her actions. 6 months later, Maplewood Heights hosts the city's first annual Community Unity Festival. Mayor Washington cuts the ribbon while Chief Williams provides security. Officer Bradley, after completing his additional training, works the community outreach booth. Mrs. Davis volunteers as a neighborhood liaison, her guilt transformed into genuine advocacy. Kathy Mitchell quietly moves to a different subdivision. The neighborhood barely notices her departure. The wedding reception finally resumes in full. Music plays without fear of complaints. Children dance without worry. Elderly relatives share stories without interruption. Jamal and Sarah cut their cake as cameras capture the moment. Not just wedding photographers now, but journalists documenting resilience. Uncle James raises the final toast of the evening. To love that overcomes hatred, dignity that survives humiliation, and leadership that builds bridges instead of walls. The applause echoes across Elmwood Drive, a sound of celebration rather than confrontation. As the evening winds down, Williams shakes Jamal's hand one final time. Mr. Mayor, your response tonight showed the leadership our city needs. Jamal looks at his wife, his family, his community, and the officers who learned from their mistakes. Chief, true leadership means building bridges even when others try to burn them down. Tonight proved that respect and dignity aren't determined by someone's appearance, but by their character and actions. The mayor extends his hand to Mrs. Davis one final time. Apology accepted. The gesture captures everything this night became, not just a wedding, but a lesson in justice, forgiveness, and the possibility of change.